Next paragraph here, and today we're doing another Sekiro guide. I know, you guys are so excited about that. We're going to be looking at Sekiro's prosthetic tools in general. Now, Sekiro has over 40 different prosthetic tools available to the player, only 20 of which are unique, and about 5 of which you're going to actually use. That's just how the game is. Now, to save you time and frustration, we're going to be ranking those tools from S to actual garbage. Let's get into it. So first and foremost, all lesser versions of these tools, everything here is going to go in the actual garbage tier. That's because as soon as you unlock the upgrades for these weapons, there is literally no reason to use them ever again. Second, this is not a list of what is the best tool. This is a list of what is the most useful tools. Because almost all of these 20 unique tools will have a situation where they are the best for the job. So there's going to be 3 categories that determine what is the most useful tool. First being, how is it useful versus a specific boss? How is it useful versus mobs or elite enemies? And how many spirit emblems does it cost? Because I have wasted so many spirit emblems on bad tools. All right, working from the bottom up, we have the E tier, the forgettables. So let's talk about the Leaping Flame, because this was honestly the most disappointing for me. This is the upgrade of the Cleaver type spear, and honestly, for 2 spirit emblems a pop, I cannot justify using this most of the time. You can use it against red-eyed enemies, but either the Sparking Axe or Flame Vent are better sources of damage and burn status buildup per spirit emblem cost. And you could use this against groups, but it's got a long windup, low damage, and no hyper armor, making it kind of subpar for pretty much everything. And hardly useful. You are forgettable. Great Feather Mist Raven, where'd that go? Here we go. This is the upgrade for the Feather Mist Raven, if you couldn't tell. It costs 3 spirit emblems for the chance to deal poor burn buildup, and most of the time a single hit's worth of vitality damage. Hard pass for me, dog. This is probably the only tool that I found no real use for, because anything you can do with this tool, you can do with deflecting, dodging, and or using a cheaper tool. So, forgettable. And last, Mountain Echo. Generally, using this is a waste of 3 spirit emblems. First off, this is the upgrade for the Finger Whistle. And everything you can do with this tool, you can do with pretty much a ceramic shard, which is only 10 sen, I believe, a fifth the cost of a spirit emblem. And I will kind of grant you could set up some pretty interesting stealth kills with this, but why bother at that high of a cost, honestly? Next up is the D tier, the meh class. We're going to talk about the Golden Vortex first. This one's actually pretty neat. There's a unique Divine Abduction upgrade costing 4 spirit emblems for 2 uses, and it isn't particularly useful for anything except for farming. Using this essentially doubles your sen and item drops, making grinding for upgrade materials a lot easier. That being said, depending on how much time you want to put into the game, it might be easier to just go through New Game Plus instead of using this and farming if you're low on materials by the time you're done with the game. Give and take. Up next is the Phantom Kunai, which is probably the most useful in this class for actual combat, which is kind of sad. This is a unique Shuriken, for 2 spirit emblems. It lets you mimic Lady Butterfly's attacks and throws out a kunai that uses little spirit butterfly thingies to deal most of its damage. It has a pretty solid damage output, and you can cheese a large portion of a boss's health pool off by just spamming this, but it's kind of a steep cost, and the tendency for the butterflies to hit walls, sides of a hill, posts, just negate all of the good points for this weapon. It truly does. I mean, it's fun and useful if you're in a wide open area, but it only does a small amount of damage more than other shurikens, so I don't really find the point in this. Synthrow is the next one. I actually like this one personally, but that's just me. This is kind of a weird shuriken upgrade. It's technically a shuriken upgrade. Let me start by saying how this works. So you use 2 spirit emblems and an increasing amount of sen from 1 to 15, depending on how much sen you have on hand, and depending on whether or not you charge your shot. So it does a pretty good amount of posture and vitality damage at close range with 501 sen held, but it's really undercut by the inefficient cost per effect. It's pretty fun though. And to clarify, the 501 limit is the hard cap. Like, that's how much sen you need for this weapon to do the max amount of damage, and it'll only ever use 15 sen per charged throw if you are using the full charge and you have the max amount of money held. So not terribly draining, but there's better things to use. Next up is the Aged Mist Raven Feather. Let me check my notes. Mist Raven. Aged Feather Mist Raven. To be honest, this primarily got the D tier because it's just straight up better than its unique variant below it. Does that mean it's useful though? No. You could use this to escape a wide AoE attack that you just couldn't get away from in time, but most of the time you could escape with a well-timed dodge or even just deflect the attacks, so I don't get this one at all. And finally, for the meh tier, we have Lazulite Flame Axe. Lazulite Sacred Flame, my bad. The only reason to use this tool over its non-Lazulite versions, the ones that actually deal wildly useful burn, is when dealing with the Headless or Shichimen warrior apparitions. Even then, it's only really useful when combined with the living weapon martial art, which unfortunately overrides Divine Confetti and lasts a very short time. It's not particularly cost effective when there are other tools for dealing with optional apparition enemies that are better. Next up we have the C tier, oh yeah, this works here tool. Let's start with this one. So this is double Divine Abduction. It's the upgrade for Divine Abduction, allowing 2 uses for the same 3 Spirit Emblem price tag. It's a great escape tool, and it causes pretty much any enemy to lose track of you, even allowing you to backstab lesser ones. And it's particularly useful against one kind of enemy, the really hard-looking, scary Taro troops, because despite their size, you can backstab them after using this. That's about it though. Those are the only 2 uses that it's got, de-aggro and backstabbing Taro troops and lesser enemies. It's truly the poster child for, oh yeah, this works here. Next up on the kind of specific niche use tier, the OL tier, we have the Lazulite Axe, a unique upgrade to the loaded axe, and I really only break this out when the mini-boss I'm fighting is resistant to the burn status, or specifically for the corrupted monk fight, because snap seeds work on that boss, and this dispels illusions upon hit, so that deals insane amount of posture damage to him. Aside from that, it's a perfectly capable axe. Like, you can still spin to win health bars off and break posture, but it still costs 2 spirit emblems, and you could do everything that this does for no spirit emblems. Alright, next up we have the B tier, getting there. First is the Sparking Axe, which in my humble opinion is the best version of the loaded axe. It destroys posture, vitality, and unfortunate samurai you run across can be pegged with oil beforehand to really shred away health with the burn status. Not to mention, the axe in general is great for clearing groups and actually necessary for shielded enemies. So it's pretty solid for 2 spirit emblem use. But like I said with the Lazulite Axe, you can technically do everything this does with other tools or by just not using spirit emblems in general with certain combat arts. So give and take. I don't know. It's still really fun to cheese mini-boss's health, so that's fun. We're gonna look at the Lazulite Sabimaru next. The BAM. This is the best version of the Sabimaru. This weapon is marginally useful though. A lot of enemies in the game are resistant to poison, with only 2 regions, the Sunken Valley and Fountainhead Palace, being, good areas for it. Areas where it's gonna find a lot of use. This weapon does, however, significantly help with a few mini-bosses that are otherwise rather difficult, like the Snake Eyes bosses, or, what are they? Okami Warriors? Okami, I think it was. Not to mention, it only takes 3 spirit emblems to perform a whole stylish Sabimaru combo. This combined with its powerful but niche use nabs it kind of B tier in my opinion. Next up, the Spiral Spear. This is hands down the best version of the loaded spear. 1 spirit emblem use, gap closing potential, you can pick targets out of a group, and the Corkscrew Rush can deal a great amount of damage through enemies' guard. You'll primarily be using this as a gap closer or to clear trash mobs like wolves, but to be honest, Shurikens work better for that just because they have a longer reach. Still, it performs pretty well, especially against the Headless Ape boss, but it's generally outshined, so it's in B tier. And then finally, Malcontent. Now, using this, like its lesser versions, is still a waste of spirit emblems, technically a bigger waste because it uses 4 instead of 3, but its true power is not in using it for stealth. Its true power is in how it trivializes the headless apparitions and the hardest late game boss, for me at least, the Demon of Hatred. That's only 3 times you'll be using this tool, but personally, its incredible usefulness in some of the hardest fights in the game make it worth it to go for this upgrade. Alright, next up we have A tier, the almost but not quite tier. So first we have Purple Fume Spark, and I count this as a unique Firecracker upgrade, specifically because of its long delay. The payoff is that this causes those affected to briefly take more vitality and posture damage for the same 2 emblem cost as other versions. This can be powerful, but the delay makes it much harder to use. Even so, Firecrackers are all around just fantastic and can pretty much stun any enemy in the game, even bosses. You can interrupt annoyingly long combos and land charged free Ichimonjis, escape crowds, destroy beasts' posture, hell you can even cheese an entire health bar off certain bosses. This particular tool is almost but not quite god tier. And then we've got the Phoenix Lilac Umbrella, the second best umbrella upgrade. This umbrella is great. It's just great. I mean, umbrellas in general are widely versatile, and they allow you to survive and observe attack patterns, get easy to flex, block almost all normal attacks, and with Projected Force upgrade, launch short-range projectiles. This version even lets you block terror and chip damage from apparitions, as well as Black Mortal Blade attacks from late-game bosses. Also, using Projected Force with this weapon lets you actually deal damage to apparitions without even using Divine Confetti, all while keeping the same 1 emblem cost. It's great for beginners, great for no-hit runs, great for hunting apparitions, just beautiful. And now we finally get to the S tier. So let's start with the best one, in my opinion, Suzaku's Lotus Umbrella, sorry. So this is great for all the other reasons that umbrellas are great, but 1, it blocks all fire-based damage and the burn status. It is great for fighting the Demon of Hatred or Red Guards or even the Red Guard mini-boss. And 2, using Projected Force with this tool deals pretty decent amount of burn status buildup. If I had to choose like a cream of the crop, number 1 most useful tool, this would definitely be it. And then we have Long Spark. So in my mind, this is the best Firecracker upgrade. Like, there's no delay between you and all the good cheesiness of the Firecracker prosthetic, albeit for slightly less damage after that than the Purple Fume, but that's not really much of an issue. I mean, this one change is what makes Long Spark better than Purple Fume Spark, because it gives you more usefulness for the Firecracker in general. Oh yeah, and it's 2 spirit emblems and generally useful. It has general utility, so great, god tier. Okanaga's Flame Vent is the next one, and 3 spirit emblems may seem like a lot, and only red-eyed enemies are really weak to fire, but let me just go off real quick. The burn status halts posture regen and does a small amount of damage over time to vitality. With oil, you inflict this status on anything not immune to burn pretty much immediately, as well as doing a large chunk of damage. Did I mention that proccing burn causes the target to be stunned for a bit? Did I also mention that this Flame Vent has an enormous charged blast and can be paired with Living Weapon for increased sword damage? You see where I'm going with this. Burn is an absolute killer for most bosses, allowing you to dish out a large amount of vitality and posture damage in a short amount of time, and especially useful for bosses such as Genichiro that recover posture quickly. Living Weapon is honestly the one thing that really puts this tool in S tier rather than Sparking Axe, because you're allowed to take great advantage of the burn status proc with it. And finally we have the Lilac Shuriken, the final upgrade for Shurikens. This is pretty straightforward like the other Shurikens, with the added effect of dealing chip damage against blocking, hitting multiple targets in a line, and a slight damage increase. You get gap close, picking off trash mobs, knocking airborne enemies down a peg, and doing posture damage to them, interrupting some attacks, and interrupting the posture cover. Oh, and just general harassment. So it's a staple tool, honestly. Anyone that doesn't use Shurikens, I gotta ask you, why? Well, there you go. There's my personal ranking from S to actual garbage for all the prosthetic tools. Yours may be different, but this is just, in my mind, what's best. If I had to give, a top 10, I'd definitely say these guys are the top best prosthetics to work for and are the ones that you're going to find yourself using the most. I think everything else down here, you can use it, but I've only really found myself using the Double Divine Abduction and the Lilac Axe for their particular usefulness against Taro troops and one particular boss, respectively. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like this, please hit like for more Sekiro content. Please comment what your personal ranking of the Sekiro's prosthetic tools are. I can speak, I promise. And consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps out a lot, and hey, it's free. Alright, I'll see you guys in the next video, guide, gameplay, whatever I decide to do next. Alright, bye.